So right now, I want to do something different. I want to start by offering a very special thank you to our first guest, Rabbi Brad Boxman, who is joining us first thing this morning. And just to tell you a little bit about Rabbi Boxman, this is somebody who is very important to this community. He's from the congregation of Kol Tikva, and he actually has provided shelter in his congregation to several of the Parkland school's shooting survivors as they fled that day. And 4 students from his congregation are among those who lost their lives at the hands of Nicholas Cruz, and Rabbi Boxman led the funerals for Alex Shakhtar and Meadow Pollock. Rabbi, I can't tell you how much we appreciate you taking the time, and also from all of us, thank you for everything that you have done for that community, because it sounds like they needed you in really the darkest time.
Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate you for asking me to be part of the broadcast this morning.
I just want to start off with everything that is going on with this trial. What has this been like for you, and what has this been like for your congregation?
Well, I think on different levels. For some, it's as if it happened yesterday. And so by just having this all in the news again and bringing up all the opportunities to reimagine and rethink through what happened, it opens up wounds that were there deep down inside, even though you thought you were turned the page and carried on. This PTSD thing is real. You kind of think that you're okay until something happens and it brings you right back to that dark place. So for some of my congregation, they're taking it in stride, and for others, it's an open wound yet again.
And if you can you walk us through what that day was like? Because it's interesting. We hear the survivor impact statements, and we're hearing how everybody reacted that day and where they were. But for you, it was a very unique situation.
Yes, it was obviously Valentine's Day, 2018. I was actually in my car with my family. My daughter also was a rabbi in Naples, Florida, and we were together with my grandson. And I got a call from the synagogue that said, "You need to come here immediately. We're in lockdown." And I didn't hear the news. This was about 2:35, maybe just a couple of minutes after the shooting had started. And they said, we need you here." So it was my day off. So I went right to the synagogue, and we were in lockdown because we're about a half a mile from the school, and the shooter was on the loose. And we have a preschool with 150 children. And so lockdown meant that the teachers and the students were locked in closets until it would be safe for them to come out. They stayed in closets for about an hour, hour and a half. And it was, petrifying to have these 2, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds hiding in closets with their teachers, not knowing what was going on. And of course, the building locked down with police and so forth surrounding us. I immediately went into the mode of trying to figure out how many of our students were in danger's way. We have about 100 students from our synagogue that went to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School at that time. We're a very small community. At that time, we were probably about 35,000. And I guess that's not very small, but comparatively, nobody even heard of Parkland, quite frankly, before that. Even if you lived in Broward County and you said you lived in Parkland, they say where? They didn't know what that city was. At any rate, I had lived in Danbury, Connecticut during 9/11, and at that time, many of my congregants were in the Twin Towers or down in southern Manhattan, and I immediately went into this mode of trying to figure out where our congregants were and were they safe and what we can do to reach out to families. And so what we did here is we had a command and control center that I set up where we would try to reach out to all the students. Many of them I had their cell phone numbers because they were students of mine in my confirmation class in 10th grade. They knew other students. We had a list of numbers, and we just one by one started calling to find out where the students were so we could relay that information to their parents if they hadn't gotten it yet. And as the time went on, we were able to check off the vast majority that were safe. And then as time went on, you realized that not everybody was, and we weren't getting answers, and no one knew where so-and-so was. In one particular case, there was two teachers in one closet hiding, each of whom had students at the high school. One got a call, the other never did. And you can only imagine the mothers sitting in the closet with their students, holding them tight, wondering what's going to happen next. And at the same time, hoping to hear from their children at the high school. And only one of them got the call that their child was okay. Interestingly enough, because we have a very tight-knit Jewish community, the students, when they left the high school to flee, many of them went to Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks, Walmart, wherever they could that was nearby to find safety. The vast majority of our kids came to the synagogue. They knew they would find refuge. They knew that there would be people there that loved them, that would provide safety and comfort and counseling services immediately, and spiritual nourishment to try to figure out what just
Right.
happened and how to survive.
And just following up on that, as I mentioned, the tremendous work that you've been doing with the community, but you led the funerals for several of these victims, including Alex Shakhtar. And I just want to play you something while I have for you. This is the Shakhtar Family Impact Statement. Let's take a look at that, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
Life is like a roller coaster. A free verse poem by Alex Shakhtar. Life is like a roller coaster. It has some ups and downs. Sometimes you can take it slow or very fast. It may be hard to breathe at times, but you just have to push yourself and keep going. Your bar is your safety. It's like your family and friends. You hold on tight and don't let go. But sometimes you might throw your hands up, because your friends and family will always be with you, just like that bar keeping you safe at all times. It may be too much for you at times. The twists, the turns, the upside downs, but you get back up and keep chugging along. Eventually it all comes to a stop. You won't know when or how, but you will know that it will be time to get off and start anew. Life is like a roller coaster.
Rabbi, as you listen to this, and if you can, what are you saying to these families? How are you counseling them? How are you, even during the course of the funerals and afterwards, what have you been saying to them, particularly now in such an incredibly difficult moment in this? And you talked about reliving what has happened. What kind of counsel are you providing them?
Jesse, I long came to the conclusion that human evil is human evil. The immediate reaction is why? How could God have done such a thing? That's the question you placed before a clergyman or a clergy person. And, some people will try to find some kind of theological answer. For me, it's pretty simple. The Holy One gives us kind of the rules that parents would give their children about how to act as a decent human being, how to be a good person, how to live a moral, ethical life to the best of our abilities. God did the same in scripture that says, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt love your neighbor as yourself, all the things that we are asked to do. And then when we, given free will, choose not to follow those injunctions, then we suffer the consequences of such tragedies. And so, first thing I do is I don't believe that God is behind these things, even though for some they look for a larger answer and maybe they say there's a greater purpose in that. I don't try to go there with most of my congregants, because I just think that blames God for something that God can't be responsible for. It's human beings that do terrible things. It's society that doesn't do enough to help people who are obviously sick in their head and unable to make good decisions. We comfort by finding strength in the ability to make things better, the ability to know that you're not alone, the ability to find a strength in a power beyond us that can help us get through tough times, the ability to reach out and hold one another. And so I think that part of the message to my congregants is that we're in this together. You're not alone. We'll find a way through, even though you'll never forget. Neither will you ever get over it. There's no such thing as getting over the loss of a child. You send a child to school, you expect they're going to come home that day, not be found murdered in their school randomly for just being in school on that day. So a day of love was turned into a day of horrific hate that took the lives of too many innocent people. Um, and so I guess the answer I give you is that you tell people that we are a community, we're here for one another, we hold on to each other, and we find strength with one another. I'll just say one other thing. There's a Hebrew quote in our sanctuary, in our synagogue, that says, Chazak, Chazak, v'nit chazek. It means be strong, and let us find strength together. And the strength is human, the strength is divine, the strength is community.
And that idea of being together and what you're saying, it's, for everybody on the outside, it's one thing, but I can just hear how much value it is for the family members and being together and sharing this and having you to guide them for it. Again, it's just remarkable work that you're doing. But you mentioned something I just want to go reflect upon. You talked about the evil in this, and this is a very unique moment with this trial, because there is a jury that is going to have to decide the ultimate issue, the ultimate sentence here, life in prison or death. And one of the things they have to determine is why he did this and what led him to do this. And we talked about how the defense hasn't begun their case yet, but we know that mental health is going to be a central issue. When you've heard everything put forward by the prosecution so far about this shooter's actions before, during, and after the shooting, from your position, a man of faith, what do you think about this? What do you think about what happened, what he did?
Look, this is someone who's obviously disturbed. You read the things that he wrote, the things that he was involved in. You know, he came from a broken home. He had no parents raising him. You can look at many different factors that can say they contributed to this horrific crime. He also was filled with hate, with swastikas written on his AR-15 and on his boots. He had horrific, statements that were misogynist and against animals and racist comments. So it's somebody obviously crying out for somebody to help him through whatever he was going through. Look, 99% of people who are mentally disturbed do not commit crimes like this. I think that needs to be clearly said. But the 1% who do, obviously have slipped through the safety net, we missed the signs to intervene before we could stop it. So a large part of the process of helping to prevent these crimes is certainly more services to reach out to people who need mental health services.
Right.
The second thing I would say is the easy access to arms like an AR-15. I'll never understand that. Then Governor Scott met with me 3 days after the shooting in my office. He came to thank me for what I did. I told him I didn't need to be thanked. He did what I did. He did what he needed to do. I did what I did. But I acknowledged his menschlichkeit, that he showed up. Menschlichkeit means they showed up in a very tough situation. Being a Republican governor, he came to these funerals, and a lot of the other Republican leaders did not. And I gave him credit for that. But I did ask him, and I said, why in anyone's name does any citizen need an AR-15? They are there for one reason, to do mass shootings, mass killing. And the only answer he could give me at that time was, Rabbi, any gun can be turned into a instrument of mass destruction. I said, that's not a good enough answer. One thing that did come out of my meeting, and I don't take full credit, but certainly I think I planted the seed that day, is I said it makes no sense that in the state of Florida, you could have a handgun only at age 21, but you could have an AR-15 at age 18. I said that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And they changed that law in addition to adding red flag laws, which have saved lives since then. So, yeah.
No, it's interesting you say that. I actually had the opportunity to sit down with Tony Montalto last week, and what was remarkable about that conversation is somebody who's hit with that tragedy, his 14-year-old daughter Gina was gunned down, is it wasn't a moment just to reflect on what happened and be stuck there. It's incredible that he and the other parents have moved forward with legislative action to make sure that this never happens again. And so when I hear about that, it's something that it really strikes you, is that they're making change to make sure that other parents don't go through what they have gone through. And he talked about the bipartisan efforts and talked about early warning signs and red flag laws and all the work that they've been doing both in the Florida and the state, local, and also national level. So it's just amazing to kind of hear about that. Rabbi, I tell you what, we have to hit a break. When we come back, I want to explore more of this conversation with you because I know your time is limited. So let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have more. Stay with us.